Today on Q&A Mondays, we talk about common misconceptions in the metal roofing industry, from paint to paint systems to warranties to Galvalume and all things in between. Welcome to the Metal Roofing Channel. This is another Q&A Mondays. I've got Jeff Hawk on the call, Julianne Calpa, and Adam Mazzella here with me. Today, we are talking about common misconceptions in the metal roofing industry. In the description below, as always, we got quick links that you can hop to any one of these questions. So first off, thanks for being here with me today, guys. We're going to start with paint systems. So why is PVDF referred to as Kynar in the industry sometimes?
Well, Kynar is a trade name, and PVDF is short for polyvinylidene fluoride. Pretty sure that wasn't ever really going to catch on. So Kynar is more of a trade name. They were kind of first to market. And Kynar is a lot like, Kleenex. Kleenex is actually a brand name describing tissue, but most people refer to a tissue as Kleenex. So sure. From that perspective, first to market, recognizable, and it crosses many different, paint names.
Okay.
There's Kynar, Hylar, Valspar, Sherwin-Williams calls it Fluorpond. There's people that call it Duranar, Durapond, you name it. But polyvinylidene fluoride isn't as catchy as Kynar, that's for sure.
Yeah. So another question we had about paint was, are all paint system warranties the same?
Long and the short of it is no. While many people will advertise similar lengths of time, or I'm 5 years more than this guy or 5 years more than this guy, it's like many warranty documents you see across industries. I think you want to make sure what your warranty is all about. Oftentimes, regardless of paint system, PVDF, polyester, SMP, when they're talking about a length of time, the typical stated time at the top of the warranty, and this isn't 100%, but typically they're talking about film adhesion. And this is crack, peel, chip over that period of time. And there's usually, look at the language in the warranty, a varying warranty for chalk and fade that generally isn't 35 or 40 years. Now, some people have their chalk and fade warranties up to 30 years, 25 years, 20 years. But again, that could vary as well by the amount of chalk or fade that a roof system could experience. So if somebody says, hey, I'm 40 years across the board, that's not really realistic. For crack, peel, chip, it could be. Sure. But for chalk and fade, you're going to want to make sure that they have, reasonably high chalk and fade measurements associated with that if they're putting a big number out there as far as the length of time for the chalk and fade portion of that warranty. So read the fine print when you're looking at a finish warranty. You're going to want to see what your manufacturer has to offer. I'd say the big thing is make sure you have something that doesn't have more exclusions, isn't 5 pages of warranty verbiage about that manufacturer's way out. Typical exclusions in a warranty are, noxious environments, coastal environments, agricultural environments that, have enclosed, animals, things like that. Other exclusions that are typical would be acts of God, acts of nature, that, you really have no control over, no manufacturer has control over. Acid rain dumping, on your house in an isolated event or things like that. So
yeah, and who does a great job of explaining chalking and fade and the paint warranties that go with it is Rob Haddock in our chalking and fade Q&A episode. There's a link in the description for that as well as up above. So that's a little bit about paint. Let's talk about substrate and material. What about Galvalume? Is Galvalume like a one-of-a-kind product?
Well, Galvalume is a hot dip product, just like galvanized would be. So it's typically a hot rolled product that's coated. Galvanized is a zinc coating, while Galvalume is an aluminum zinc coating. It goes by a number of different trade names. We have customers consistently referring to it as Galvalume, Galvalume Plus, acrylic coated Galvalume. Zincalume Plus. A lot of these are just referring to the same thing, which in our mind is acrylic coated Galvalume. Is it one of a kind? When you compare it to galvanized, I'd say it probably is. Galvalume has some self-healing characteristics when it's perforated that galvanized doesn't. As well as if it's perforated and over-weathered and accelerated weather testing over time, it doesn't deteriorate as dramatically or as severe as galvanized would. So to say, is it one of a kind from a steel perspective and the architectural metals world, I would say it is. It carries a warranty, galvanized does not. So, to Galvalume itself, is very broad and rangy, and oftentimes referring to a number of different things in our world. So beyond, acrylic coated Galvalume or Galvalume Plus, that would be considered bare. That product, the bare product, is coated with AZ55, or what's commonly referred to as AZ55. The 55 refers to the coating weight of the basically the hot dip process that covers that core steel, that cold rolled steel in the core. The AZ50 is typical of a painted product. So they use a little bit less of a coating than you would with AZ55. Okay. And, because you're getting the other benefits of protection from primer coats and then subsequently a PVDF paint finish over top of that, or, it can be anything. It can be SMP, it can be a polyester paint finish. And similarly, if you're talking about galvanized, common in the construction world, you see G90 galvanized, G60 galvanized. That 60 and 90 are referring to the thickness of the coating on it. So typical in our world, we're seeing AZ50 for painted, AZ55 for unpainted.
Unpainted. Okay, so it's the same makeup of the coating, just different thicknesses.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and as Adam mentioned, galvanized is zinc coating, but the definition of Galvalume is a carbon steel sheet coated with aluminum zinc alloy by a continuous hot dipping process. The nominal coating composition is 55% aluminum and 45% zinc, and then they add a small addition of silicone in the coating alloy. It doesn't add to the corrosion performance, but it does provide a good coating adhesion to the steel substrate when the product is roll formed or bent during the fabrication process.
Why they call it that plus is really or Galvalume Plus, Zincalume Plus, it's that thin coating on it that allows, for Jeff said, to protect it while it's being roll formed or bent, shaped. You want to make sure you don't crush the coating. It's still susceptible to damage. And then that acrylic coating will wear off over time.
Right, and then if the coating is damaged, that leaves the bare metal.
Potentially, yeah. You just want to be careful of it. It's like you want to handle it like you're handling a painted product. If there's significant damage, you don't want to use it. You don't want to put it out in the elements where it's going to be susceptible to failure.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about paint, we talked about substrate. Now I'm wondering about the testing. So are engineered products a necessity?
Yes, we always promote engineered systems. Whenever they can be used, we always promote using an engineered system.
We want to see all systems engineered.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of a misnomer that you're using an engineered clip or you're using the engineered fastener. Sure, for engineering to be valid, you have to use the appropriate engineered components that we have engineered in our system. But beyond that, just because you're using those components doesn't mean it's an engineered system. It's got to be, the appropriate spacing. It's got to, 2 foot, 3 foot, whatever the engineering calls for.
Yeah.
But also constructed, the right way, panel intolerance over the right type of, deck,
Another common misconception is UL rated clips. UL rated clips are used in UL construction numbers, and that's why they bear the UL stamp. Just like any UL tested product, from electrical to mechanical, if it's tested by UL, it's going to bear the UL stamp. But with certain uplift testings and things like that, they are UL standard tests. So you can test the product to UL standards without it being a UL rated clip used in a UL assembly, a UL tested assembly. So again, the stamps are provided because they go along with the construction numbers, but say for our engineering, our clips don't have UL stamps, but they were tested in accordance with UL standards.
So let's switch gears here and talk about another type of testing, which is hail testing. So does having a hail rated roof make it hail proof?
It doesn't mean it won't sustain hail damage. It means that it won't penetrate the roof system. So the hail and ice isn't going to actually come through your metal system into your structure. That's what the UL 2218 testing provides. It means that hail resistance, but you get large size hail, especially with light gauge metal falling from the sky. It has a very good chance of it denting your roof system. That's why a lot of insurance companies, when it comes to these hail waivers, they'll have you sign a hail damage waiver, saying, and you'll receive a discount on your insurance premiums. But if you get any aesthetic damage to your roof system, it's now no longer covered. So again, it means that it won't penetrate the roof system, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to damage aesthetically the metal roof that's on your building.
Similar to a car, that goes through a hailstorm. That car is going to have dents and things like that all over it. Your insurance is there to protect you from an event like that. So if you're in a hail region and you sign away your rights to aesthetics, in all likelihood, within 20 years, you'll likely have a hail event that will cause damage.
Actually, we have an article about this. It's our industry standards and testing article. If you want to learn more about 2218, there's a link in the description below.
So those are some of the top misconceptions, misnomers that we've heard in the industry. If you've heard anything that you want to have questions or you have questions about, comment below. We can do other videos like this, add them to Q&A Mondays. Love answering your questions. Subscribe to the Metal Roofing channel. Check out Julianne's blog on SHEFFIELDmetals.com. Again, ask us any questions you want. We'd be happy to answer them. Thanks, guys.